in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen came out in 2024 and was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Reader's Favorite Romantasy for 2024. And while it didn't win that, it did win my personal award for most dull and uninspired book that I read this year, to the point where I was yelling about it to my poor husband. Let's dig in. Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about A Fate Inked in Blood. This is not my first rodeo with Danielle L. Jensen, but I DNF'd The Bridge Kingdom with a quickness. I was told that this one was better, though. This was one of the most heavy-handed things I've ever read as far as setting up its twist, and in general was just such an absolute slog to get through while not feeling remotely enjoyable to inhabit the world of. I was reading two books at once that were about Norse mythology, although the other one was The Fox and the Falcon, which is about Norse mythology and other mythologies. And I thought that this one would at least feel more immersive because it's set there the whole time. Instead, I was texting my best friend Lou saying how incredibly boring they are, which I was able to do in 2 languages, actually, thanks to today's sponsor, which is Babbel. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world. It has lessons using real-life conversations that are scientifically proven to help you start learning a new language in just 3 weeks. Babbel's lessons are crafted by over 650 real language learning experts, and these are lessons that were developed to help you start learning practical, real-world conversation. I mean, certainly Babbel has been effective in helping me learn how to scream about boring books, but it taught me that by teaching me not just the words, but sentence structure, things like irregular verbs, stuff that I also struggle with in English. And this has helped me open new doors. I've been able to talk in my comments with people in Portuguese, as well as, again, scream about terrible books to my best friend Lou. And that's because Babbel teaches you a new language in a practical way. It prepares you to have real-world conversations, everything from your personal life to business to talking to your friends about terrible media.
Right now I'm in Unit 6 learning about how to talk about what you do in your free time, but you can do my review with me today, and we're gonna do writing.
Nós não temos, we don't have uma reserva. Você não vai pedir uma starter is entrada.
Você não vai pedir uma entrada?
Eu quero sopa de legumes is vegetables, which always gets me because legumes is like beans, but legumes is vegetables. Sopa de legumes. Tim Upsos para see if I remember how to spell vegetarians. I got it!
Opções para vegetarianos?
Oh, it's been a while since I had a review on this section. Okay, so main is principal, but I can't remember the word for dish. Is it prato principal? I got it!
Qual é o prato principal?
So what language are you hoping to tackle in 2025? Whether it's Portuguese or French or Italian or Turkish, you can get 60% off your subscription by clicking the link below or using the QR code to get yourself started today ranting about books in more than one language. And thank you so much to Babbel for sponsoring today's video. For this one, I do not need to read you the synopsis. I can summarize faster. A young woman named Freya, who has a secret power and a prophecy surrounding her, gets forced to marry a guy who is shitty, whose son she met before she met the guy who she was forced to marry, and immediately she has the hots for the guy's son. Ta-da! Oh, and then we go on a wild goose chase, running all over the world because Freya is important because prophecy. All right, so we have 2 main lands. Our main character, Freya, comes from Skaland, and then there's the enemies, which are the Nordland. And in the beginning, she is married to this guy named, what's his name? Skagi? Vragi. She's married to this guy named Vragi, and Vragi is a piece of shit. Her mom basically set her up to be like, listen, you're going to be a wife, and you are going to take care of your husband. She'd have been better off teaching me the restraint needed not to stab said husband when he proved himself a short-witted drunkard with an acid tongue. Her husband is a child of the gods. So is she, but we are not revealing that in the narrative yet. I'm just telling you before we get into it. He was granted a drop of Nord's blood at his conception, which gave him powerful magic over the creatures of the sea, except instead of using it to care for our people, he used his magic to deprive other fishermen of any catch, even as he filled his own net. And she was married off to this guy because her family needed wealth. Her father died on her wedding night. Her husband treats her like shit, and he's like, yeah, you're pretty, but looks don't make babies, looks don't gut fish, looks don't cook food, you're a terrible wife. And she's like, well, he doesn't know that I've been using lemon juice and sponge in order to prevent myself from getting pregnant whenever we bone. He's like, a whole year of marriage and no son. And she's like, yes, and there never will be if I can help it. And she regularly makes sacrifices to Freya, the god, begging her to prevent pregnancy. Basically, this entire first part of the first chapter is just setting up that everybody in Freya's life treats Freya like shit. And this is this is a very heavy-handed book because it's like, look at my husband who treats me like shit, my brother who gets everything he wants, my mom who married me off, my dad who married me off and then died. And then after we get that explanation of, Freya's life circumstances, she's like, and now I'm on the beach and a man is here. Who's that? In walks the only nice person she's ever met in her life. Okay. He was alarmingly attractive, tall and broad of shoulder. He appeared to be only a handful of years older than my 20 years. His black hair was shaved on the sides, the rest pulled back in a short tail behind his tattooed head. He was all high cheekbones and chiseled lines. While most men wore beards, he bore only the scruff of a few days' absence from a razor. He wore no shirt, and water dripped off a naked torso, corded with thick muscle. It's always corded with thick muscle with y'all. His sun-darkened skin marked with dozens of inky tattoos. A warrior, undoubtedly. And even without a weapon, I suspected he was a significant threat. Wow. Thank you so much for just depositing that all on me on one paragraph to let me know that the hot love interest has now walked in. Don't worry, guys. In case there was any doubt, this one's the love interest. Like, you might as well just get big neon signs and be like, love interest here. So she's like, who are you? And threatens him. And he makes a joke that he was tasked to swim across the fjord and fight with beautiful women throwing fish because she accidentally hit him in the head with a fish.
You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass.
With her distracted, we will be safe to attack. He's like, well, where is your husband? Because you're wearing a ring. Where might I find him? Because I'm going to kill him. I'm going to make you a free woman so that you can bed me with no concerns for propriety. They're just immediately horny. Great.
Do you always begin conversations this way?
And of course, this is all said as a joke, but she is in fact going to be husbandless in a second, and they are eventually going to bone. But when they bone, he is technically her stepson. It's fine though, she hates her husband. And he reveals that he works for Jarl Snorri, and Snorri is actually the same Jarl that her brother works for. Her brother is a warrior, and she is desperate to be one too, but of course she got married off to mean Vragi. So into chapter 2, she's like, I just wish that I could stop wanting for things. I wish I could stop wanting to be away from my husband and wanting to go places and do things and be a warrior and be a shield maiden. She goes and she does fighting. She uses her package of fish as a shield. Says that she dreams of fighting, of joining the Jarl's warband and raids against our rivals to the east. But when she told her family that she wanted to walk in her brother's footsteps, she was laughed at, of course, because she's a woman. It'll only be a matter of time until they discovered what you are, and then you'd never choose anything ever again, her father told her. What I was, my secret, my curse. Which you eventually find out that she is blessed with a drop of blood from the goddess named Helene, and Helene gave her the power of sort of like lightning shield power. She's the goddess of protection, so she is a protector. Her brother Geir, who gets everything he wants, who she loves but he treats pretty poorly, has eyes for her friend Ingrid. Now I say friend because there is no point anywhere in this book that Ingrid acts as a friend to our main character. We never see them be friends. We only see Ingrid after she has married Geir, the brother. And once again, it just goes to show that every single person in Freya's life is shitty so that we can set up the love interest to be, he's the nice guy and that's why I love him. He's the only person who's ever been nice to me, which is really lazy writing. Her brother chastises her for making her husband upset. If you anger Vragi enough that he casts you aside, Snorri might not let me keep my place. And if I lose my place, how will I gain the wealth I need to marry Ingrid? What would you even do without Vragi? I'd fight, I'd raid, I'd earn my wealth. I don't need Vragi. So then they come upon Snorri, who is the Jarl that Geir works for. And Snorri's like, Vragi tells me that Freya here, your sister, wants to join the raids this summer. And Geir's like, no, that's not true. Nah, she doesn't want to do that.
It would be absolutely, totally, and in all other ways inconceivable.
She's a married woman. With respect, Freya should be focused on family, not fighting. Agreed, Snorri replied, but Vragi tells me that's not the case, that Freya thinks more of fighting than of babies. So Snorri's like, okay, well, give her a weapon. Let's see if she's a better warrior than she is a wife. And he's like, Björn, son, come forward. You will check if Freya has any prowess. And of course, Bjorn is the guy on the beach. So the guy on the beach is the son of Snorri, who's now making her fight. He was Jarl's, what? He was Jarl Snorri's son and heir, which would have been bad enough, but he was also a child of Tyr, the god having granted him a drop of blood and all the magic that came with it as at his conception. So when they speak the name of the gods that give them a drop of blood, they can use their power. So when he speaks the name Tyr, an axe made of fire forms in his hand. And he's like, okay, so like to first blood we fight? I fight this woman to first blood? And Jarl Snorri's like, no, to the death. Fight her to the death. This is madness, Bjorn snarled. You'd have me kill this woman? Why? Because of that waste of flesh? He wants a new wife? Vragi is a child of Njord. He is a man of value, and he's proven his loyalty. And Freya's like, I'm not certain that this is about me anymore. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And at this point, I didn't know what the fuck was going on either. If you kill Bjorn, Freya, I'll put that armband from his corpse and put it on you. You may have his place in my Drakkar when we sail on summer raids and his share of the wealth that comes with, being part of the war band. And a divorce from Vragi. Bjorn's like, all right, to the death then.
To the death.
No! To the pain.
Sorry for this, Freya. May Odin greet you with a full cup. She's like, oh, I'm sure he will, because you'll warn him to be ready for me when you arrive. So they're like, oh, they're flirting and they're about to kill each other. Yay.
Is this a kissing book?
So they're fighting, and she yells at Snorri, why are you doing this? What do you have to gain from my death? I gain nothing from your death. So fight. None of this made sense. And Bjorn's like, there's no sport to this contest. It's nothing more than this weasel-cocked fishmonger wanting bigger men to punish his wife for his own failings beneath the furs. So basically he's saying that Vragi's bad in bed and that's why he wants his wife dead. And Vragi's like, I plowed her nightly. That's a direct quote. And I'm like, oh, do we have to say it like that? It's her fault. And so Bjorn says, perhaps you plowed the wrong field. And she puts all this to bed and says, no, lemon juice took care of his stuff. And then it says, this is Bjorn. The world is truly better off without your progeny if you don't question why your woman tastes of lemons. And she sits there and thinks, tastes? Get it? Because Vragi never goes down on her. And so Bjorn, realizing that she's confused, is like, oh, seems like he was definitely doing it wrong.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
They're fighting while this is happening, by the way. This conversation is happening while they are duking it out. The burning axe blurred toward me, striking my shield. Helene! I gasped out the name forbidden to me all my life, because her dad was like, don't say Helene's name, do not call upon the power. But she has been, in secret. A clap of thunder shattered my ears as Bjorn's falling axe struck my shield, which was no longer formed of wood, but of silver light. So she can use something, turn it into a shield if she calls out Helene's name, and it turns into a protectorate made of light, maybe lightning, I'm not really sure. And so this is what they were trying to prove, was they brought this out of her where she proved that she has a power. And Vragi was like, ha, all those times you were sneaking away, I thought you were fucking somebody else. So I followed you and I caught you. And sure enough, it had nothing to do with another cock. And Bjorn's like, so does this mean I'm not supposed to kill her? Or...
You see my distant fellow. I hate to kill you.
So it turns out that Snorri wanted her if she could prove that she was the shield maiden. And so he buys her from Vragi. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And he says, I'm only honoring the gods by setting you to your true purpose. You'll soon be second wife to the Jarl.
Knowledge.
Nearly 2 decades ago, a seer spoke a prophecy to me of a shield maiden who'd been birthed the night of a red moon. She told me that this woman's name would be born in the fire of the god, and she would unite the people of Scotland beneath the rule of one who controlled her fate. And she's like, well, fate is controlled by the Norns. You are to be kingmaker, Freya, Snorri said, and as your husband, the one who decides your fate, I will be that king. So he thinks that if he takes her on as his wife, even though that's not what the prophecy says, if he takes her on as his wife, then he will be in control of her, and therefore he will be the king that unites all of Scotland. She's like, oh, this is why my father asked me to keep my magic a secret. He was one of Snorri's warriors previously, and that's how he found out about the prophecy. And she looks to her brother for backup, and he's like, nah. And then Snorri's like, well, I'm pissed off at your brother anyway because you knew that she had that power and you didn't tell me even though you knew about the prophecy. And so he breaks her brother's shin. He's like, well, once your leg is healed, then you can come back and work for me again. She then gets really pissed off at everybody and picks up Bjorn's fire axe and throws it at her now ex-husband Vragi. It lands in his head and yeah, she just killed him. So at this point, the book was like, it's fine. It goes downhill immediately after this. Like, it was already pretty heavy-handed with, look, we're setting up the nice guy to be the love interest, and that was really annoying. But I liked the reveal that she had a power. It just, after this, it was so watered down by all of the uncool, boring shit that we do that I don't care anymore.
That does put a damper on our relationship.
Also, her picking up the axe burns her hand pretty badly. And Snorri's like, how could you let her disarm you? And Bjorn says, well, I didn't think she'd do it. Nobody has ever tried. Because, of course, Bjorn is like the biggest, baddest, big dick dude who's so hard and has a fire axe. We then get introduced to Ylva and Liv, who I got confused. Ylva is Jarl Snorri's wife, as in he's already married and he's taking on a second wife. Snorri's wife and the Lady of Halsar, which is the town, city, I don't know, that they run. And then there's also Liv, who's a healer, Liv, L-I-V, Liv, who's a healer who heals her hands. And then later Liv dies and I was like, wait, was I supposed to care about that? See, everything that happens in this book is pretty much, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Was I supposed to care about that? Because we never really took time to make me give a shit. We took a lot of time doing the same thing over and over, a lot of traveling and a lot of Freya being in her feelings. I think that this really was a book that did not need to be written in first person. She has to get tattooed so that she like gets solidified as a daughter of Helene, so she does. But when she does that ceremony, there's a secondary tattoo, which has never, as far as anyone knows, has never happened before. And the way that this all happens, where there's like visions and tattooing and shit, is they believe that Bjorn is destined to be Freya's protector. Now, Bjorn previously was a ward of the King Jarl of Nordland, who they are at odds with, but he grew up with them. He ended up with them for a really long time, and he has an accent that is a Nordland accent, but now he's back with his father, Snorri. His mom was a seer, and she is dead. The gods brought you back to me, Bjorn, so that I might find Freya, and it seems the gods desire you to be the one to keep her safe, so that I might achieve what has been foreseen. It is your destiny. And immediately after this, after like the visions that are like, oh, you know, Bjorn is supposed to keep me safe. After this, for some reason, everything that I've just described to you happening has led her to feel some sort of connection with him enough that when she sees him talking to other women, she's jealous. And I'm like, you just met. The sourness of jealousy, which I had no right to feel, yet it was too easy to remember when I'd been the recipient of his flirtation, and irrational as it was, I hated that our moment was obviously a regular occurrence for him. Bitch, you just met him. What the fuck are you talking about? Ylva is upset that Snorri, her husband, is going to marry our main character, Freya. Is this truly their will? The foretelling said nothing of marriage, nothing of consummation, only of control. The gods surely wish for you to wield her like a weapon, but not beget a child upon her to unleash her heart. And Freya's like, child? What the fuck? What? Listen, I didn't even want to marry this guy. Why are we talking about children? And she's like, hey, let's make a deal. Let's make a bargain. I'll swear an oath, and we don't have to consummate anything, and I'll never tell anybody that we didn't consummate anything. I do not want to fuck Snorri. So Ylva's like, we could use the runes. Witchcraft, sorcery, every instinct told me to run, even as logic whispered that I wouldn't get far. I'm not sure why witchcraft and sorcery are considered bad. I feel like I missed something, but okay. I could bind her to you, Ylva's voice said. And Freya's like, it must be on the condition that Snorri swears never to touch me. If anyone were to learn of this magic, your life would be in danger, Ylva, for the only way to break the spell is your death. Freya's like, all right, we continue with the deception. I'll be your wife. The gods enjoy cleverness, so they will look upon the deception as a brilliant strategy worthy of a king. And I'm like, wait, so couldn't we have had a different brilliant strategy that didn't involve deceiving the people? Why would the gods want a king to deceive their people? I just feel like I'm missing something. I feel like it really feels like we set up this idea of like Freya has to be married to the dad, secretly wanting to fuck her stepson so that we'd have stakes. But like it has to actually make sense that you married the guy in the first place, that it was like super necessary, that there was no other way out of it. And I can think of like at least 4 other ways around this. Like if she married Bjorn, wouldn't she also still be under Snorri's control? If the prophecy just said control, then being his daughter-in-law would also put her under his control. Or just putting her in his control, saying that like he is his shield maiden, that she has to work for him. So first it was like, well, the gods say we have to be married. Well, the gods say that we don't have to consummate our marriage because deceiving the people is actually a really good idea that the gods will love. What are we doing? What are we doing here? And Freya's like, we'll be the best of allies. And Ylva says, if you ever betray us, I will kill you. I'll make you watch by everyone you care about is carved apart piece by piece. And when you are reduced to a broken thing, I'll bury you alive. So she makes a vow. I vow to serve no man not of this blood. I vow allegiance to him who is of this blood. I vow to protect at all cost him who is of this blood. I vow to speak no word of bargain except to him who is of this blood. Now, obviously, like, Bjorn is supposedly, and I'm still confused about who Bjorn's father is, to be honest, but Bjorn is of Snorri's blood. So I thought, oh, well, then she's going to be able to tell Bjorn. And she was, but then Bjorn later said that Snorri's not his dad. So I don't know. I just work here. So she actually goes and talks to Bjorn, like, right after this, and he's like, you could run away, you know. She's like, what difference does it make to you? And while they're having this conversation, suddenly they are come upon by raiders run by a guy named Knut. Knut Olafsson was Jarl of the territories to the east of us, familiar to me only because his stronghold was one fjord over from my village, and we needed often to pay his warriors to leave us be. And he was here all because of me, because of what I could supposedly do. He was here to kill me. And Bjorn warns her, he's like, listen, anything that you're gonna do is gonna be seen by the bard, who's like a magical bard. Skald. She's called a Skald. I forget her name. Bjorn says to Freya, hey, listen, these attacks are never going to stop. You should just run. You should just run from Skaland and not come back. Knut is the first to come for you. He won't be the last. Far more dangerous men than him will soon turn their eyes on you. And Snorri's not going to be there for his people. He says that he will just take you and he'll abandon Halsar if he has to, his city. No matter what Ylva says, he'll sacrifice everything in that hall for the sake of keeping warriors alive until they've sobered up, because he values their lives more than he values those hiding inside. And Freya's like, I'm not standing by while innocents die in a fight over me, and if you try to stop me, I'll stab you in the stomach.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
They are come upon by Knut. She and Bjorn work together to like get rid of some of the ships, and then Knut and his warriors head the fuck out of there because they didn't win. And after this, Snorri, still alive, says that Bjorn, his son, needs to teach Freya to protect herself, and he also needs to protect her. The people grieve, blaming her for last night's raid. Some might go so far as to seek vengeance upon her, which you must protect her against. You must also help her turn into a warrior they see as worth following. And Bjorn's like, I don't know how to fucking teach people how to fight. Helene foresaw that it would be you who will keep her safe. You will remain at her side day and night until she has fulfilled his destiny. Day and night, huh? You are my son. You will abide or you will leave. We get the backstory of what happened with Bjorn and Nordland. This is the story that we're told. King Harald of Nordland heard about the foretelling about Freya. Knowing a united Skaland would pose a danger to him, he came to Halsar to kidnap Bjorn. He intended to hold him hostage so that Snorri would never move against Nordland. Bjorn's mother was killed during the kidnapping, burned alive, they say. We find out later that that is not what happened. Snorri attempted to free Bjorn so many times, but it was not until 3 years ago that he succeeded, and it was at great cost in ships and men. So he lived like into his 20s with this other king. Yet well worth it, for Harald lost his hostage, and Snorri regained the son whose magic had the power to reveal the shield maiden, though there are those who wish he'd never return. And she's like, yeah, Ylva, because Ylva has her own son that, you know, is not going to inherit if Bjorn inherits. Snorri was handfasted to Ylva when Bjorn was conceived with Saga during a moment of indiscretion. So he wasn't married to Saga, Bjorn's mom. He was handfasted, so I guess engaged to Ylva, and he slept with Saga and had Bjorn. So now Ylva has a son by him, but Bjorn is still Snorri's firstborn son. Ylva said she couldn't stand Snorri being with another woman again. The first instance must have been with Bjorn's mother. And she had said that when they were about to, you know, consummate the marriage. And Leif, Bjorn's brother, is 15. He's on a hunting expedition with his cousins, though I expect he'll return soon. Snorri needs more warriors than Halsar needs meat. She talks to Bjorn, and she's like, our fates are tied together, the prophecy. He's like, my fate is not tied to yours. Snorri is just spinning words to get what he wants. It's not my destiny to protect you. What if he's right? Other than Ylva, you were the one who saw the vision of me being torn apart. I don't even understand the vision, to be honest with you. But somehow the vision of Freya being torn apart leads to them thinking that Bjorn is her protector. Probably because I have God's blood. Well, so does Steinen and Leave. Steinen is the bard herald, the singer person. And Steinen didn't say that she saw anything. Anyway, they train together and they get into an argument about how he doesn't want to be her protector. He does reveal that his dad did not come try to get him out of Nordland until his dad heard that his magic had manifested. So he has daddy issues. And this is also the conversation where he learns that the same seer who foretold her being this shield maiden who would unite Scotland under the control of a king was his mother. And she's like, why can't we just ask the seer for more information? And he's like, because the seer is dead and it was my mom. King Harold of Nordland, his seer was found in their midst, and it's not his seer. She was some lady who named like Ragnhild with a drop of God's blood. And Harold had her tongue, and somehow she was able to like speak across distance because he had her tongue, and she told him that Freya, the shield maiden, is there. So now Harold knows that Freya's there. So Harold's a-coming, and they're like, what do we do? Leif, Bjorn's half-brother, Snorri's the other son, is there. And he's like, why don't we just kill the shield maiden? And Bjorn's like, all right, Snorri, father, what are you planning to do here? How do you plan to gain the alliances you need with others in order to, deal with the fact that Harold's going to raid? I will gather all the Jarls of Scotland together and convince them that united we stand at better odds, which gives us more proof that the gods favor us. And we're going to ride to pay homage to the gods at Fjaltinder. Fjaltinder was the sacred temple. Sacred temple on the very top of the mountain known as Hammer. Every 9 years there was a gathering that drew people from near and far to pay tribute to the gods and offer their sacrifices. When they're about to go, she sees a hooded figure that she has seen before, and this time it seems like it's trying to talk to her.
The Twin Power Twarbirds is here for you, sir.
Nobody else can see it, so it's a specter, and it's, a sign from the gods. The specter says, she the unfated, the child of Helene, she who was born in fire must give sacrifice to the gods on the mount of the first night of the full moon, else her thread will be cut short, the future that was foreseen unwoven. She must earn her fate. And hearing this, Freya is thinking to herself, maybe I could wait for a moment when backs were turned and run. And when she tells Snorri about this, she's thinking, like, relaying this information to Snorri and company. They're like, oh, this is so great. All right, Freya makes a sacrifice. And she thinks to herself, maybe I could wait for a moment when backs were turned and run. And somehow Snorri's just like in tune with her so much, he thinks, or he just like knows what she's thinking somehow. I don't know, really heavy-handed. If you destroy the fate foreseen for me, Freya, you had best hope that you are dead, for my wrath will burn like wildfire, and it will turn on everything you love. So they are traveling, one time of many traveling sessions, to Fjaltinder, and on the way there, they make a stop, and her and Bjorn, of course, fight together, and he's like, so your shield, does it just take the form of, like, whatever you're holding? Like, does anything you're holding form into a shield? And she shows him that yes, like she uses a pot lid and it turns into a shield through Helene's power. So he throws a knife at her and it just bounces off the pot lid. But he like touches the pot and it feels like he's touching her, and she's like, wow. And she's like shivering at the thought of him touching her bare skin. I don't know, something about the way that this is written feels like trying to get to a destination without actually, it's sort of like, I don't know, have you ever like, you can't travel to Paris, so you ever just like make fake Paris in your room and you're like printing out pictures of Eiffel Tower and you eat a croissant? It sort of feels like that. Like we're just like, well, we can't, spend the time to actually get these people to feel like a fully fleshed out couple, so we'll just do a bunch of traveling and fake those moments, and then we'll just pretend we got there in the end, because now we're going to do that thing where it says she was feeling for all the world like he was the first person to ever understand me. Except that wasn't quite it. My family understood me, my friends understood me, and I'm like, wait, do they? And second of all, what friends? You have one friend and she's never come on page. She's just gonna marry your brother. What friends? What are you talking about? You don't have any life outside of this dude. Now Snorri saw that she, was able to fend off his attack, and he's like, is her magic more powerful than yours? The shield maiden is stronger than you? It certainly seems to be the case. Yet more proof the gods favor her, that they favor me. And Freya's like, why? How is the strength of my magic proof that the gods favor you as the future king of Scotland? And Ylva, the wife, is like, shut your disrespectful mouth. Everybody's just mean to Freya. Be at ease, my love. She has not your experience nor wisdom to have faith in the gods. And Bjorn's like, it's true. She probably has like 2 decades less experience. Or is it 3, Ylva? Making fun of Ylva for being old. He hated Ylva, hated her more than could be reasonably justified by what I'd seen and heard. You sure? She's kind of a dick. But again, this is just heavy-handed, like, make sure you tell them how to feel about Bjorn's feelings. things. I was grateful my husband was able to rescue you from our enemies, Bjorn, but every day you test that gratitude. Don't lie to me, Ylva. He's like, I know that you don't like that I took Leif's place as heir, but at least have the decency to own it rather than hiding behind false sentiment. Fine! I do not wish for you to inherit. You were gone too long and are more of a Nordlander than a Skalander. The people deserve to be ruled by one of their own, by a legitimate son. And Snorri's like, enough! And basically they just think that King Harold, when he was keeping Bjorn, has poisoned Bjorn against them. And Snorri's like, I understand, Ylva, that you want Bjorn to not inherit and you want Leif to inherit, but Leif is not my firstborn, and Leif does not have a drop of God's blood, so no. This book starts to get increasingly hornier, which, who's shocked? And she's basically like thinking about having sex with Bjorn, but of course, the way that we do this, like how we do everything in this book is, I'm thinking about Bjorn in comparison to all these other men. All these other men were so mean to me. I'm thinking about Bjorn in comparison to all my other friends. One friend who never comes on page. My other friends were so mean to me. I'm thinking about Bjorn in comparison to all my family members who were so mean to me. So of course, when it comes to sex, it's the same thing. I'm thinking about having sex with Bjorn. I bet Bjorn would never be like Vragi, who just bent me over a table and did the deed. Like, oh my God, it's just so lazy. But anyway, there's no time to think about any of this. Why are we thinking about this? Because they're attacked again.
That's enough! That's enough!
It's just what happens over and over. They're attacked by a Jarl named Jarl Torvin, who says, your time will come soon enough. Snorri, you possess the Kingmaker, but have not the strength to keep her. Everyone is coming from her to kill her or take her, and you'll be a corpse alongside me soon enough. And Snorri says, how can I fear death when the gods themselves have foreseen my greatness? Oh, they foresaw greatness, Torvin says, but is it yours or is it for the taking? And I don't really understand how they didn't really think about this more. Like, I don't know. I just feel like if I were Freya, I would be like, I bet you it is for the taking. And if I conspire with somebody else to kill Snorri, then maybe I could ally myself with a better Jarl and get the fuck out of this situation and make my circumstances better. But no, Freya doesn't make plans. Freya's over here just thinking about having sex with this guy who surely will be better sex than the only sex she's had before. Anyway, they fight off these people, and then Snorri's like, well, what we need is a diversion. So the rest of us will go this way. Bjorn and Freya will go that way on the path to Helheim, which is full of draug, which are ghouls. And Bjorn's like, I'm not fucking doing that. And Snorri says that he has to either choose to be his son or be a coward. He cannot be both. And Ylva says, if you fail to make it to the Fjelltinder by the full moon, Freya, you will cease to be of value and we're going to kill your family. Bjorn and Freya go on this journey to Helheim, the path of Helheim, away from everybody else in order to, throw off any attackers. And the path to Helheim is, of course, riddled with ghouls, and what's going to happen is they're going to have to fight some ghouls. But the way that this was written was so similar to what happens in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. They're like walking in this cavernous place, and then, something drops. In this case, it's a golden cup crusted with jewels. It goes bouncing out of sight, and then right after this is when the ghouls wake up and come after them. They're called draug though. 4 skeletal figures race towards us. No weapon forged by mortal hands can harm them. She puts herself in danger fighting off these draug in order to save him, and he's like, don't ever do that again. She's like, why? Because your father will punish you if I even stub a toe. He says, no, because I don't deserve it. I'm like, it's so boring. Some foretelling doesn't make my life worth more than yours. I don't give a shit about what you think what you think is complete shit. It's great. He's like, yeah, people would come from all around to hear the poetry of your words. Kiss my arse, Bjorn. Perhaps later.
They're kissing again.
Then they come upon more ghouls, and they're like, and Bjorn's like, where's your Jarl? Because I know y'all have a ghoul Jarl. And so the ghoul Jarl tricks him into fighting him, but of course the ghoul Jarl is not going to die and Bjorn can't use his axe because of the deal, but also he can't be killed by mortal hands. So basically Bjorn has sentenced himself to death against this ghoul Jarl. He leaves his axe behind near Freya, so Freya's like, if I pick it up again, am I gonna get hurt? So she asks Hlin to protect her, picks up the fire axe that is Bjorn's, throws it at the ghoul Jarl, it lands in his chest, and then Bjorn says, I forfeit the challenge, and then kills the ghoul Jarl. Then they're still dealing with the rest of the Draug. And so randomly, Freya decides to say, I curse you to Helheim, you shades of men. May hell rule you until the end of days, for you do not deserve the honor of Valhalla. And blackened tree roots start coming up out of the fucking ground, wrapping around the Draug. And Bjorn's like, good to see the gods finally being helpful to our cause. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Well, it turns out that Freya is the daughter of two gods, but we don't know this until later. So it doesn't really hit very hard when it's just like, why did this happen? And then later you find out and you're like, oh, okay. Like, again, am I supposed to care? I gotta go get a sweater. I'm getting cold in my house in Florida. Weird. Is this iron deficiency again? Oh boy. Anyway, speaking of iron, kind of, her and Bjorn talk about the fact that she was able to like lift up his axe. Maybe the gods foresaw it. They think it has something to do with her tattoos. I don't know. Honestly, all of the magic and stuff was kind of written in a weird way that it was kind of hard to understand. And people had commented on my review of this book saying that they also felt like it was difficult to understand. I just feel like it was kind of undercooked. I just feel like the magic here was not really explained. I don't really have a good understanding of the world. And I also feel like I don't really have a good grasp on like the setting. Like on a line level, this is written fine. I understand it. I don't think there are any descriptions that make me scratch my head. Unlike, you know, a lot of romantasy that I've read recently in the last 2 years where people try to be poetic and they end up just saying things that don't really make sense. Like I get what you're trying to say, but the way you said it is ridiculous. But here I just feel like it's very lackluster. Like I want to feel immersed. And I don't. I feel like all of the words, you know, like just the word count in general was spent more on repeating that Bjorn is so nice in comparison to all these terrible people around her. And then also another thing that we're doing regularly, and we're about to do it now, is she just repeats how she has like a voice in her head, but it doesn't seem like to be literal at first. It feels more like her conscience. Her conscience is telling her, no, don't want to fuck Bjorn. He's your stepson. And then later on, suddenly another voice comes in, and again, I just thought that like these were like inner voices. You know how we have like our gut is telling us stuff, but then later it turns out that the secondary voice is more literal, sort of. I just feel like we weren't giving the audience much to go off of here. But she's feeling like she wants him, and it says, a voice screamed in her head, he's your husband's son. Nothing good could come of this. Husband and name only, I screamed back at the voice. A sham of a marriage. That doesn't mean you aren't bound. And I'm like, okay, if I'm really, really arguing with my head like this, something's up, right? Something's up. And then later the voice in her head is saying stuff that is, you know, a little wacky, a little outlandish, a little violent, and she doesn't think anything of this. Like, if I'm hearing voices and I know that I have a god's blood in me, I'm gonna start to think maybe it's the gods, right? Maybe the gods are talking to me. But this never even occurs to her, which further just makes my case that this main character is fucking stupid.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Wait till I get going!
The biggest reason I think she's stupid is because it's very clear to anybody with two brain cells to rub together that Bjorn is hiding something. But for some reason, this just like goes right over the main character's head. I really don't think I'm very intelligent, so I don't like reading books where I've figured things out miles before the main character. Especially when it's so like hammering you over the head with this information and you're like, oh my God, Freya, come on, catch up, you're so stupid. And because it does that for the majority of the book until the very end, when the twist is the thing that you've seen coming for years, it's like sitting in a room with it's like an elephant in the room, and suddenly somebody's like, the whole time there's been an elephant in this room, and I'm like, I know, I've said this several times, and you're like, yeah, you never saw it coming. I said it was right there. Like, I felt so shortchanged by this. I'm like, well, you know, and you think reading this book, like, no way, the author's leading you to that conclusion and being heavy-handed with it still in order to like, and you feel like, oh, you got me. It was actually a different twist all along, which is also lazy writing, but the laziest of the lazy is to make it blatantly obvious and then reveal it at the end. And you're like, but I'm an adult. Anyways, she asks him about his time in Nordland. Nordland was Scotland's greatest enemy, the most vicious of raiders. They treated you well? Yes, very well. Snorri wishes to wage war against them. Will that be difficult for you to fight against those who raised you? And he says, Vengeance must be had against the one who hurt my mother. I've sworn an oath to take everything from him, and anyone who stands in my way is nothing more than a casualty of war. And I'm like, okay, listen, when you say the one who hurt my mother, I know that you are not talking about King Harold anymore. Like you've done it. You've already made it obvious that we're no longer talking about who we're talking about. You're beating around it. You got around it, but I saw it. The elephant is right there. I see it. You led the elephant into the room and then pretended I didn't see you do that. It's like when my kid like steals a cracker, like one of those graham crackers covered in sugar, and I've specifically said don't eat another one of those, and he's pulling it out of the bag slowly as I'm saying you can't eat another one, and he goes to take a bite and he's like, you didn't even see me. I'm like, I did see you. Just because you did it slowly doesn't mean I didn't see it happen. So this is where the book started to piss me off, because I'm like, I swear to God, if this ends where it's like, haha, see, Bjorn didn't hate King Harold of Nordland all along. Who he was talking about was his dad, who might not be his dad. I still don't know. But she doesn't think about these things. You know what she is thinking about? She imagines saying to him, Bjorn, I know I'm married to your father, but we need to address how we both want to strip naked and have sex. Thank you so much. Excellent. Wonderful. I'm so glad. But they don't end up having time to have that conversation. They do get back to Snorri and company at Fjelltinder. Bjorn is getting increasingly pushy about the idea of her running away and leaving. My father holds your family hostage, and you've proven time and time again that there's nothing you won't do to protect them, no sacrifice you won't make, even though, if I might add, they don't deserve it, which means he can do whatever he wants and you will abide. What would you do? For me to be in such a situation would require there being someone among the living who might be used as leverage against me. Oh my God, he's broody. Yay! And she's like, so what do you have that's worth living for then, if not a person? And he says, reputation and battle fame, of course. Bjorn's response should have disgusted me in its selfishness, but there was a hollowness beneath his flippancy that made me wonder if some part of him wished it were otherwise. Wow, thank you for laying all that out for me and telling me how to feel. There was a hollowness beneath the flippancy. You caught on to a hollowness beneath the flippancy that would lead you to believe that some part of him wished that it was more to live for in life than reputation and battle fame. You caught all of that via tone? Okay, sure. So at Fjelltinder, who should arrive but King Harold of Nordland, the man who kept Bjorn hostage and allegedly killed Bjorn's mother. And he tells Freya, many seek your death, for they do not wish to see Scotland with a king, and even less to swear allegiance to Snorri, though I see they have all failed to kill you as they swore to do. And he's like, the rumor is that you're costing more than you're earning. And Snorri's like, you murdered my seer and stole my son from me, and you kept him.
You're trying to kidnap what I've rightfully stolen.
As a hostage, whom I raised as though he were my own son, in honor of our friendship, Harold says. And what choice did I have anyways, because you blamed me for Saga's death, the seer, Bjorn's mom, and used that to create support among people for raiding my shores. If I'd not kept Bjorn at my side, those raids would have come to fruition. You'd have slaughtered my people and it would have been war. And Snorri's like, it will be war. So if I were Freya and I had a brain, which is not the case, but if I were Freya and I had a brain, here's what I would be thinking. That's interesting. Bjorn doesn't seem to hate King Harold. He alluded to wanting revenge, and yet King Harold just said that he didn't kill his mother. I previously been told that King Harold sows the seeds of doubt. So either King Harold has sown so much doubt in Bjorn and Ylva and Snorri are correct, and Bjorn has turned, or King Harold is not a bad guy, or at least not as bad as Snorri, who I know is a bad guy because he forced me into a marriage with him, but Freya doesn't think either of those things.
Let me put it this way. Have you ever heard of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates?
Yes?
Morons.
Not even a little bit does she think either of those things, because Freya doesn't have a brain. And now having any brains, main characters are the worst main characters. Instead, she just thinks, part of me reveled in the idea of striking back against the man who kept Bjorn from his family to achieve his own ends, but another part of me remembered how Bjorn had spoken of the kindness of Nordlanders to him while he was a prisoner. That's it? That's all you can think? You're not putting any context clues together? How? Anyway, King Harold leaves. She has to make a sacrifice, as the specter told her to, so she kills a bull, spills its blood. Bjorn has to help her, of course, because she can't do anything on her own. Gods forbid. The gods showed up. I guess only she can see them. I don't know. Why they cared for the child of the most minor of their ranks I just didn't understand. Why me? I'm like, you can't possibly think that something fucky is going on. Nope, not with no brain. If I only had a brain. This really is like the Wizard of Oz, except the main character isn't Dorothy. The main character is the Scarecrow with no brain. And Snorri's like, we did it. She did the sacrifice. The gods, the gods showed up. Like, and it's not like they like talked or anything, but whatever. And Snorri's like, that's it. This is all the proof I need that I am the chosen one. I am chosen to control the Shield Maiden and unite all of Scotland under me, King Snorri. She once again has another conversation with Bjorn where he is alluding to the fact that he is not mad at King Harold. She just witnessed him side by side next to King Harold, not acting even a fraction of rage that he should, if that's the man who killed his mom, right? And she's like, you should be screaming for vengeance. And he says, I do wish revenge. And that's it. And she's not picking up on the clues. We're like halfway through the book. You're so stupid. And instead of thinking about these, she's just thinking about how horny she is. Once again, it's great. So this really stupid and also horny woman is in her tent after all of this. She notices that Ylva, her sister wife, has left, and she's thinking about Bjorn, who's like in the, in the space that she's sharing, but she's behind a curtain. So she's thinking about Bjorn. She's all horny. She's also thinking, I was doomed to be an unsatisfied wife, and another part of me wanting to rage that it was so. If the gods truly favored me, then they ought to have delivered an attractive man who knew how to pleasure a woman. You know what the gods really should have delivered? Brain cells to you. You're so stupid. If this were me, I wouldn't have time to flick the bean. I would be, what is that? Is that fuzz? It's fuzz from my socks. If I was her, I wouldn't have time to flick the bean. I'd be sitting here trying to put these pieces together. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why is Bjorn acting so weird about Harold? Harold claimed that he didn't kill Saga. He claimed that that was set up by Snorri, and Snorri's a bad person. So is there something to that? She doesn't think that at all. I don't know how. That's ridiculous. Instead, she's like, man, I wish that the gods had sent some dude to fuck me correctly. Maybe we should bring a man in here. And maybe after sex, maybe you will have post-orgasm clarity that will lead to brain cells forming. That would be great. I wish we could get that in here. Can you help a girl out, for the love of God? So she's flicking the bean, thinking about Bjorn, thinking about all their time together, not thinking normal thoughts, about how nothing's adding up. And instead of climaxing, Bjorn stirred in the room and she's like, oh, yeah, I was just chilling. I had a scratch, actually. I'm just kidding. He doesn't talk to her at all. He leaves the room. She knows that Ylva's also gone. She's like, what the fuck is going on? So she goes out and she sees Harold talking to a woman. She doesn't see the woman, but the woman says to Harold, a good mother protects her son, does what it takes. Harold says something, then that is our plan. He trusts you. Who had been conspiring with Harold? Ylva, I was sure of it. So she sees the person who was talking to Harold, the woman who was talking to Harold, who says a good mother protects her son, walk to the place that she had been sleeping along with Ylva and Bjorn and not be able to get in because Ylva had put up wards. And she's like, ha, Ylva's own wards kicked her out. Ylva's own wards kicked her out? What do you mean? Why would you think that? And so it doesn't even occur to her that maybe it would be somebody else. It's just immediately, it's Ylva. It's Ylva. Of course. There aren't, millions of other women in the world who you have not met. Sure. No, that's fine. It's not, and I know the answer, but it's not, of course you wouldn't think that the person is the person, which I'm going to tell you later. Of course you wouldn't think that, right? She thinks that person is dead. That's fine. But it doesn't make sense to think that it's Ylva because there are millions of other women in the world who it could be. It could be anybody. It could be anybody. It could be a god. You don't know. And it certainly doesn't make sense that if Ylva set up wards and then the wards kicked out the person, that it would also be Ylva. And she's like, ha, Ylva got kicked out by her own wards. How? This is when I really started getting pissed. At this point, the book was sitting at like a 2, and this is when it went meow, 1 star. And it never brought itself back up, by the way. It just stayed there. 1 star. It couldn't push itself because it just kept being so stupid. So she goes to Bjorn and she's like, Ylva's working with Harold. She's conspiring with him to kill you, so Snorri will have to name Leif heir. And like none of that was actually said. She just made that up. I didn't see her, but I heard enough of the conversation. No, you did not. You did not hear that in the conversation. They need to like get across Felltinder, and there's a bunch of Harold's men and they don't want to be caught. Harold's men are going to either take her or kill her, and they need to go find Snorri. So they try to cross Felltinder with all these people, and they run into a bunch of Nordland men, and he's like, just make out with me, and then they, that they'll go away. And so they like passionately start making out. She tells him to f her. And the guys are like, you guys aren't supposed to be here. We need to see you without your masks on. And so he takes off his mask and they see him. The Nordlanders see Björn and they don't think, that's the son of our enemy. They're like, Björn, you old so-and-so. And then they fuck off. So this is another clue that Björn is not fully allied with his father's people of Scotland, right? You would think that that is the case. But you know who doesn't think that? Is Freya. She asks, why did that work? Why didn't they ask to see my face? He doesn't answer and she never thinks about this again. But the thing is, you already have enough clues to know that this doesn't make sense. Something is not adding up here. They finally make it to Snorri. Ylva's there and they're like, you weren't in your tent. Where were you? And she was like, I was with Jarl Bodil, who's a woman. Bodil was a famous warrior and the only woman who claimed the title of Jarl, but more than that, she was a child of the god Forseti, able to tell truth from lie no matter who spoke, which meant if Ylva lied about what she'd been doing, Bodil would know. Yes, true. However, if Bodil was in on it, then Bodil would not tell you that Ylva was lying. And nobody brings this up until later after Bodil's dead. It doesn't make sense. Ylva met with me to discuss an alliance, Bodil said. And Snorri's like, I accept your allegiance. My allegiance is to the shield maiden, not you, Bodil says. And Ylva's like, well, she's wed to Snorri, so it amounts to the same. And then they're like, okay, so if Ylva was out with Bodil, fine, but where was Björn? Where was he sneaking off to if he wasn't talking to the king? And Björn's like, oh, I went to go talk to a seer. I'm sure you're putting the pieces together now, right? Because it's obvious. It's fine. I guess this author just thinks that we're all stupid. In the next chapter, Freya, continuing to not put any pieces together, constantly just thinks about her feelings for Björn. You're a stupid, lovesick fool. What? Fuel? Jesus, Rachel. You're a stupid, lovesick fool, I snarled at myself. Lives are at stake, and yet you lust over muscles and a pretty face. Act like a grown woman, not a girl who's never had a man between her legs. It's more than that, my heart pleaded in protest. It's more than just lust. She's arguing with herself, doesn't think anything of this. I'm not even sure if this is her arguing with a god or not, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure if that's actually her conscience or if it's clean. I don't know. I have no idea. Book didn't explain it. Instead, we just go on and on about how horny she is and how she's avoiding the very obvious clues to what is going on, only for it to be revealed later and it to be a betrayal somehow. They leave Fjelltinder. They get back to Halsar, which is the city that Jarl Snorri runs, and it's burned. It's all burned. Thankfully, Leif is still alive, Björn's half-brother, but Liv, not Leif, but Liv, L-I-V, the healer who apparently we're supposed to care about, who came up in like 2 scenes, is dead.
Yes, very sad. Anyway, it got me thinking.
And Snorri's like, we are not going to rebuild. That's what Gnut wants. Because Gnut, the guy who attacked previously, also attacked this time. Like a healer excises a bit of rotten flesh, so has Gnut burned away our weaknesses, says Snorri, leaving nothing behind but strength. We will turn our backs on this pile of mud and ash. And then we will sleep beneath the walls, within the walls of Grindel, which is Gnut's territory. And this is when I really started to rage at Carlos about this book, because this shit doesn't make any fucking sense. She knows that Snorri is a bad person. She has questioned, hey, why is it that you take credit for my power? Why is it that you twist this prophecy to benefit you? Why is it that you do so much shit that doesn't make sense? And even knowing all of that, says of Snorri saying, you know, we're going to take over Grindel, says, I allowed myself to be swept away by it, for a path forward was an escape for what had come before, from what surrounded me now. We're going to make the bastards bleed for this, I said, turning to Björn. You are agreeing with Snorri, who literally has your whole family hostage, essentially, if you don't manipulate this prophecy and do his bidding. What do you mean? You allowed yourself to be swept away by it? No, you're just stupid. You are allowing your brain to continue in its complete stupidity that apparently you have been living with your whole life. It's a shame that the drop of God's blood that you received was not from somebody whose power was brain cells, the power of brain cells. By the power of brain cells, you will get through this. You will not see these obvious clues and then make the absolute most complete, obvious, stupid decision. That would be great. Would be a better book, certainly. And she says this, we're going to make the bastards bleed to this, to Bjorn, who she looks over and realizes isn't standing there anymore. Again, another clue that Bjorn is not all in. And if Bjorn's not all in, despite the fact that he thinks that he is the son of Snorri, who should be avenging his mom's death, then maybe something's afoot! Talking to Bodil, the Jarl. By the way, Bodil is only going to last from like the time that they were about to leave Fjelltinder to the time that they get to Gnut's territory. And apparently we're supposed to care about her too. I don't know why. Couldn't tell you. I just work here. How do you know when someone is telling him his truth? Bodhi says, my feet itch, which was actually kind of funny. Nearly everyone is deceiving someone about something, even if it's only themselves. In my youth, I suffered tremendous anger because it felt as though everyone was lying to me. I love this idea. The thing is that it was done better in Truth Witch. Like the power of discerning truth and fiction is great. So this book probably would have been better if Bodil was the main character. But then again, like I said, Truth Witch is a better book. Okay, so something very confusing happens where the specter once again appears to Freya. It led her from the beach to a fire, a signal fire, which was burning, and a woman was there, and there were a bunch of runes. She touched the runes, and it showed a vision of Snorri giving his speech, detailing his plans to abandon Halsar and take Grendel. It was a message. And she's telling this to Bjorn. There are combinations of runes that can burn themselves away once their magic has been spent. Prudent for anyone leaving a message they'd rather no one see. And then she says, I really think that Ylva is conspiring against Snorri with Harold, with King Harold of Nordland. And he's like, to what end? She's a vulva. She knows how to use the runes. We know she wants to be rid of you so that Leaf can inherit. I struggle to believe Ylva would risk her people just for the sake of getting rid of me. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. She could just poison him. Like, she could just have somebody poison him. What? Freya, you're just so stupid and it's just really hurting my feelings. Snorri says that she needs to start training with Bodil because Bodil's a woman. I don't know. And he's like, and Bjorn is like, yeah, you should train with Bodil. She'll teach you better than a man ever could. And Freya's like, why don't you want to look at me? And, yada, yada, why don't you pay attention to me? And then they're making out.
Do we have to hear the kissing part?
I wanted you the moment I first set eyes on you. I wanted you in Fjelltinder. I wanted you now and tomorrow and all the tomorrows, Freya. And they're like going back and forth, if we do this now, then it'll open a door. And if Freya's like, if I go down this path and we get caught, then he'll kill my family. They end up telling Snorri about the fact that she saw the specter. And the way that she describes the specter, Snorri believes that the specter is Saga, Bjorn's dead mother. She foretold Freya's coming and the specter did not appear until Freya's name was born in fire. And Freya's like, I believe that Ylva, your wife, is a traitor, by the way. And there were like, I saw runes and shit, and I just believe that your wife is betraying you. And Ylva's like, I'm not betraying shit. And Snorri's like, none of this matters. What matters is that Freya has a path forward. And basically he's just like, I don't give a shit about anything. I just care about my glory and turning into this prophesied king. Freya and Snorri get into it where she's like, you don't control my fate. I can make decisions on my own. And she thinks to herself, Bjorn's mother had not named Snorri as the one who must control my fate, which meant it could be anyone. He controlled me using a farce of a marriage, threats against my family, and oaths bound by magic, and where that had once seemed like more than enough to keep me under his thumb, now I wondered if the gods have something else in mind. Now? You wonder? Just now? First time? Okay, no, that's fine. It's fine! On the way to Gnut's territory to take it over, her and Bjorn fool around, but just like, his fingers up in her cooch. He says, you are mine, born in fire, even if only the two of us know it. I don't feel the need to read this scene. We all knew it was coming. And it feels shallow, and I'm not going to spend time on it because I'm annoyed that the book spent so much time working up to this. And we're just going to have like a bunch more sex scenes after this, even though I feel like all of them are unnecessary. We haven't actually cultivated this couple. We've just made a very stupid person lust after like an enigmatic man. Great. So they make it to Gnut's territory, and there is a woman that comes upon them who is like one of the, she has a drop of God's blood, and it's Thor's. And she kills Bodil, Jarl Bodil, who was the woman Jarl who it was in like a few chapters that apparently we're supposed to care about. And Freya is like distraught over this. And when I realized that she was super distraught over it, I was like, oh, Freya cares. Was I supposed to? She kills a bunch of people because of this. And so then she's like cutting down everybody. And so she gets to Gnut and he's like, you're a monster. You killed the parents of children. And Bjorn kills Gnut. And she's mad that he took the kill away from her. At least I think that's what happened. I don't know. I didn't really care, so I wasn't really highlighting. Yep, it was Bjorn. Gnut had been mine to kill. All these men had been mine to kill. And Bjorn had stolen that away from me. Gnut deserved to die. All this is because he refused to bend. Bodil is dead. And Bjorn's like, she died with a weapon in hand. And Freya's like, oh, did she? I don't think she did. Because if she doesn't die with a weapon in hand, then she doesn't get to go to Valhalla. So Freya books it back to make sure that Bodil died with a weapon in hand. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Anyways, they take over Grindel, Gnut's territory. And who shows up in the next chapter but Geir, her stupid brother. He has brought his wife Ingrid with him. Wife. I hadn't even known they'd been married. By the way, when they found out that oh my God, this is just another way in which we made it so that everybody's mean to Freya, so we should feel bad for her and root for her and the guy who's nice to her, which is just so lazy. One of the things that is supposed to make us dislike Geir and Ingrid of the list is that when Freya married Snorri, they sent her as a wedding gift her father's sword, but of course the sword is supposed to be given to Snorri. And she's like, oh, that makes me sad. I'm like, oh my God, it's just more evidence that I'm supposed to care about Freya, not all these mean people. Her brother had paid a healer to mend his leg, and now he can beg to be let back into the ranks of Snorri. She gets into a fight with her brother, and he calls her a mad bitch. And of course, who's going to stick up for her? It's Bjorn, the only nice person in this book. It's great. You don't deserve her loyalty, he says. They get into a fight, and she begs Bjorn not to beat the shit out of her brother. In the next chapter, Bjorn tells her that he wants her to listen to Steinar, the bard who has singing magic, which is also like a cool idea, but super underutilized in this book, where it's like she hears your story, and then she can sing it and make everybody see it. And it's almost like an empathy power, kind of, which I thought was really cool. But again, I don't really understand how it works, and it's pretty underutilized. And normally Bjorn hates Steinar because he feels like she steals people's stories, including his. But he's like, I want you, Freya, to listen to Steinar sing tonight. And so Steinar sings the version of events told about the battle that Freya just did, told to her by other people, not by Freya herself. I watched myself slaughter all who crossed my path. It's a lie. I don't know if Snorri made her do it or those who spoke lied, but that wasn't how it went. The people I killed, they were our enemy. They were attacking me. What if I didn't lose myself, Bjorn? What if I found myself? What if my power is fear? Oh no, we're quickly running into her villain era. Great. And he's like, listen, no, you can leave. We can leave. Let me take you away from all this. And she's like, let's just have sex. Hate this woman. Do you not want to have sex with me because you think that me and your dad did it? We have never had sex, and we never will. Shock broke through the haze of desire because I'd sworn an oath not to tell anyone of the deal Snorri and I had made, but it was as though someone else held control of my tongue. Someone who'd say anything, do anything to get what she wanted. I don't really know who this is referring to, or what, or if it's anything literal. I don't know. We made a deal that he'd never touch me and that in exchange I'd lie to everyone, but the gods know the truth, Bjorn, I'm a free woman. And he's like, okay, then leave with me. He's right, the new voice whispered to me, all they ever did was use you. The new voice has appeared. Now, I don't know if that's literal or figurative. I won't do it, Freya. I won't skulk around with you in the shadows. If you want me to be free of your father's shadow, maybe you should find your balls and get rid of him. And he tells her, hey, your eyes are red right now. Same as they were when you attacked Grindel. So I guess her eyes turn red depending on, I think what's happening is that she's the daughter of, what is the goddess? I don't remember. A certain goddess. And when her eyes turn red, she's angry and bad. And the voice in her head says, kill Snorri, challenge him and take everything. There's something in me, she says. And he says, it's Helene, but she's the goddess of protection. Only a few stories speak of her and tell nothing of her nature. And she's like, okay, I feel like I'm at war with something I know nothing about. No living being has ever met Helene except one person. I need to go speak with my mother. I was so confused at this point. They go and talk to Snorri, and Snorri says, hey, Freya, we have 2 new jarls who have joined our regime. They have sworn allegiance to me as king. We were present for Steinar's performance, which was a privilege to behold. Our enemies will cower in terror of you. And one of them says to Bjorn, to see revenge for your mother's murder on the horizon must have your blood blazing. And Bjorn again says something very vague. I have waited many years for my vengeance. Just hammer me over the head with it at this point. You might as well just slam me over the head with it. So they go talk to Ilva and they're like, hey, I need to know more about Hlin, the god's blood, because some fucky shit is going on. Well, is there like a compelling story around the way that you were conceived? Because I don't think tales of lust and divine fornication will inspire people to think better of you. Because they're trying to get Steinen to go talk to Freya's mother, but Steinen won't do it. She's like all of a sudden being very mean to Freya. Your song makes me appear like a monster. And Steinen's like, perhaps because you are one. They had no problems with her beforehand, but now suddenly she doesn't like Freya. I don't know. So Ylva's like, okay, you two just go. I'll tell Snorri that you are talking to the gods and you're taking some mushroom tea and you're like, you know, having a spiritual moment. You guys quickly head the fuck out of here, travel all the way to Freya's mom's house, get your answers, and get back here quickly. So they go and talk to Freya's mother, who is under guard by one of Snorri's men, but he treats her very kindly and helps her out. And Freya's mom is like decked out in silver and treated really well, of course, because her daughter, you know, got married off to a Jarl. So she asks her about her conception, which now I don't really know if and this again is like the magic is not super explained. I don't know if every child of every god, like the kids who have a drop of a god's blood, got that way because their parents boned with a god in the room, but I guess that's what happened to Freya. So she asked her mom, did you know it was Hlin you invited into your bed? It was not Hlin we took into our bed, Freya, but another. What happened was her brother was a sick baby. One night a knock sounded on their door when her brother Geir was like gonna die. Her skin was white as ivory and her hair dark as a moonless night. She said, I will spare your son in exchange for a gift in recompense for his loss. I knew she was a god. She asked to lie between her parents, and what our passions yield shall be the sacrifice that pays for the health of your son. Now, I don't know if lie between means a threesome, I don't know, or if she just, you know, held their hands while they did it. I have no idea. It doesn't really say. I could only imagine how my parents had felt, compelled to have sex to save their son, even while he lay dying in the same room. Yes, that is something. And apparently the coitus was so much that they felt so spent that they fell into the deepest slumber. And when they awoke, the woman was gone, and so was Geir, the brother. They were distraught, and then another knock sounded at the door, and it was a different woman standing outside with Geir, the baby. But now he looked perfectly healthy. And the woman had amber eyes that glowed like suns. And now I assume this is supposed to sound like the red eyes that Freya gets when she's angry, but then again, hers are described as red, and amber is not red, it's more orange, but all right, whatever. So this goddess says, you've been played false. I offer you a bargain that is pure. Allow the child about you, Freya's mom is pregnant, or at least is gonna be, I don't know. Semen's on the way, I guess. Allow the child about to quicken within you to be my vessel, and I will give you back this boy. If the child within you is gifted only avarice, her words will be curses, but if gifted altruism, what divine power she might make her own is a fate yet unwoven. And Freya's mom's like, yeah, if I can have my son back, you can have my kid as your vessel. I'm so sorry, Freya. I chose your brother over you. She's about to flip-flop and be a dick even after just apologizing. Like, it just in an instant snaps. This is another issue I took with another book I read recently, where it's just like, we wrote the mom in the same scene as being two very different personalities. I cursed you to be the Jarl's weapon, and then she just flips and goes, why do you risk it all by climbing into bed with his son? What madness possesses you, Freya? Your life and the lives of everyone in this family hangs in the balance. Is satisfying your lust worth your brother's life? And Freya's thinking of all the things that her mom has asked of her over her life. My anger, always simmering, burst into flames. Do not make demands of me. My whole life, all you have ever done is take from me for Geir's gain. You literally just said it was fine. She apologized and you said it was fine, but now you guys are flip-flopping. Help me. Her mom calls her a little whore, and Freya's like, you guys are all selfish. And Bjorn's like, ha, I told you your family sucks. See, I'm the only nice guy here. And they leave. He reveals to her that Saga, his mother, had more than one foretelling about Freya. She told me that the Shield Maiden would unite Scotland, but that tens of thousands would be left dead in your wake, that you'd walk upon the ground like a plague, pitting friend against friend, brother against brother, and all would fear you. I didn't tell you because you weren't what my mother described, but you would turn into a monster if you allowed him to take control of your fate. I thought hearing Steinen's song, seeing yourself like that, would drive you to walk a different path, but you just couldn't escape the need to protect the pieces of shit you call family. She's like, well, if I like leave with you, like you've been asking me to do, then I am condemning my family to die. She's like, I was told that, you know, if I am altruistic, then I'll be good. Choosing others before myself is how I will achieve a destiny different from what your mother saw. And he's like, oh, I hate this about you, but it's also the same thing that makes me love you. And she's like, oh my God, he loves me. Am I supposed to care? You're mine, born in fire, and I'm yours, even if only the two of us know it. Oh, Jesus. So they are leaving, right, to go back to Grindel. Yeah. Well, on the way, they see a woman in a boat pull up, and her name is Skade, and he knows her because she's Nordland. She works for Harold. She's his hunter. Freya's like, oh, how did she know I was here? She must be chasing me. And the only person who knew we were coming here was Ylva. And I'm like, there's actually one other person who knew you were coming. You're standing next to him, but you're stupid, so you don't see it. And Bjorn's like, you're ridiculous. How can it possibly be Ylva? When you accused her of leaving the message with the runes, she denied it, and Bodil confirmed she was telling the truth. And now she thinks, what if Bodil was lying? You didn't think that when it originally happened. You're just thinking it now? Oh my God. The thought hollowed out my core because I trusted Bodil. Yes, it actually doesn't make sense for you to make that assumption now after you trusted Bodil. It would have made more sense for you to say that when you didn't know Bodil at all. Okay. They follow Skade back to her mother's house, and from a distance they watch Skade's men kill Snorri's guy who's been staying with her mother. Skade interrogates her mom and says, was your daughter here? Freya's mom says, yes, she was here. She left an hour ago. The Jarl's son, Bjorn, known as the Fire Hand, was with her. If you hurry, you might catch them. And Skade's like, thanks, you've been most helpful. But also, I hate women who betray their own children. And she fires an arrow and it stabs Freya's mom through the heart. Now, Skade has powers. She's the child of, she has a drop of some god's blood that wherever she fires the arrow, it always makes its mark. So she shoots Freya's mom through the heart. She leaves. Freya runs up to her dying mom and says, I'm sorry for all the things that I said. And she's like heartbroken over this. And Bjorn's like, to nearly her dying breath, she betrayed her own daughter. And I'm like, yeah, it's hilarious that you have to keep explaining basic concepts to this woman. And instead of thinking, you know, normal thoughts, Freya, always the stupid one, says, this is Ylva's fault. I'm gonna kill that traitorous bitch. And he's like, it can't be Ylva. It doesn't make sense. And if you kill her on speculation, my father is just gonna punish you by killing your remaining family. What you need to do is run and get yourself out of here before you lose any more of yourself. And she's like, but what about the chance to avenge my mother? You of all people should understand avenging a mother. And he says, I know exactly who came into my mother's cabin that night with murder in his heart, saw it with my own eyes, and still I will give it up for your sake. Once again, he does not say Harold's name. Her eyes are turning red. He says her rage is controlling her again. She asks him to burn down her mother's cabin, and he's really trying to convince her to leave. And, you know, when he has like a minute where he can't catch her if she runs back to Snorri at Grindel. Back at Grindel, she accuses Ylva of being a traitor, and Snorri's like, well, what the fuck? Y'all told me that she was in her room seeking guidance from the gods. So she explains all of this stuff that's happened, the woman who was talking to Harold back at Fjelltinder, and how that woman got repelled by the wards that in the cabin that Freya was staying in. And Ylva's like, why would I get turned away by my own wards? And I'm like, Ylva, come here. You're dealing with somebody too stupid. You deserve better than this. Get out of here. You gotta run, girl. That's crazy. This woman is stupid. She's gonna get you killed because she can't put two and two together. They're like, well, you know, maybe Bodil was lying and Ylva was working with her, but Bodil's dead now. But this doesn't matter because they're about to be come upon by Harold's men. And Tora, the child of Thor who killed Bodil, is with them. And Ylva's like, we need to run. If he has Skade and he has Tora, he's got both those women with him. We cannot win this fight. We gotta run. And Snorri's like, I didn't come this far to run now. Bjorn lets it slip that he doesn't think that Snorri controls Freya's fate. And Snorri's like, oh, because you think you control her fate. You think I'm blind? I know lust when I see it. I tolerated you coveting my wife because I believed you loyal. And Freya's like, oh, we fooled no one. And I'm like, only yourself. Only yourself. Because you are, in fact, a fool. Know that you are only alive because I swore an oath not to satisfy my own desires. But do not think the gods will allow you to go unpunished. And there are fates far worse than death for men like you. And he tells Bjorn, kill me or get out of my sight. I don't know why Bjorn didn't just kill him, to be honest. And Freya finally concedes and says, all right, I'm willing to leave. But of course, then one of Snorri's men has a brother to her knife's Has a brother to her knife's throat. Oh man, I'm getting tired. Has a knife to her brother's throat. And her brother's like, Freya, they took Ingrid and she's pregnant. And now, of course, Freya feels bad again, so she's not going to leave. Harold shows up and he's like, listen, I was allied with Canute, but I'm not here to kill people. I just want Freya. Give me Freya. I'll get back on my ships. We'll go back to Nordland. Nobody has to die. Then they argue again about what happened with Bjorn's mom. We both know it wasn't me who brought violence to Saga's door. That's a lie you used to justify your intentions to make war upon Nordland. This is the second time that he has accused Snorri publicly of this, and it's still not sinking in for Freya. Snorri's like, liar, you killed Saga and then stole my son. Bjorn, who was the only one who knew with certainty which man was telling the truth, was silent. And I'm like, take the hint, Freya. Either give her to me or we will battle here and now, allowing the gods to choose the victor. The gods have already foreseen my victory, says Snorri. It's not too late, Freya, Harold says. No one need die today. All it takes is you deciding to change your fate. So she directly turns to Bjorn and asks him, which one of them killed your mother? He says to her point blank, neither of them killed her, Freya. Bjorn had a scar on his shoulder from the first time he called Tyr's flame, from setting a cabin on fire. Saga had burned alive. My vengeance is my own, born in fire. That's what he calls her. And he's like, don't let my vengeance and what happened to me make your decision for you. And I'm like, but it should. This is stupid. If you just tell her the truth, which you're keeping from her for no reason, if you just tell her the truth, then she will ally with you and you guys can decide to team up with Harold together and make a better deal with Harold. But instead, you just kept it from her so that we could have a twist in the end that has been seeded so unsparingly. I mean, it's practically like I'm choking on the clues. So when the battle happens, Freya decides to just run to the river and try to kill herself. The specter appears in front of her and it's like, no. Bjorn appears and he's like, where you go, I go. They jump into like a waterfall together and Tora, the daughter of Thor, her lightning like flung them into the water or some shit. So everybody's gonna think they're dead. So he takes her to the home that he shared with his mother. I haven't been here since the night it burned. One night my mother shook me awake and told me to hide, pushing me under some blankets in a chest. I heard a man's voice, heard him making demands of her, heard her refusing, then she screamed. I don't remember saying Tyr's name, but I must have because a burning axe was suddenly in my hand. I panicked and dropped it, and within seconds the cabin was ablaze. Notice how he did not say I heard Harold speaking to my mother. And there's really no reason why he can't just tell her it was Snorri. Snorri is the reason my mom is dead. The last thing I remember is my mother screaming, and then I woke again. I was to find myself in Nordland. And she's like, oh, and then he was the prisoner of his mother's murderer. Bitch, 4 pages ago, you asked him point blank, who killed your mother? And he said, neither of these men. Why aren't you thinking about that? If you're thinking, oh, he's the prisoner of his mother's murderer. Wait a minute. No, he said he didn't murder her. What happened? Who did murder your mother? Why aren't you asking that? Ask the reasonable, obvious question when it is obvious for it to come up in the line of thinking. Don't put it off just so we can have a reveal. That's stupid and lazy. Instead, what are we gonna do? Sex. He's got a boner. The sensation making her sex throb. He was all hard lines and thick muscle. Up to this point, he has been servicing her and he hasn't let her do anything for him. And he says, it's because I didn't want to take from you, not knowing if I could return it in equal measure.
I'm going to duel him left-handed. It's the only way I can be satisfied. If I use my right, over too quickly.
So many of those in my life were content to take from me, leaving me a barren well. Bjorn alone had taken nothing, asked for nothing. Yes, we know. We have set this up very obviously that Bjorn is the only nice guy, the only nice person, in fact. Ugh! And of course we have a sex scene that says, he consumed me. I want you hot and wet and so desperate for my in you that you beg for it, Freya. And then when he's done, he's spilling into me a flood hotter than the waters we swam in. By the way, they're in a cave. And then he says, I'll kill anyone who tries to take you from me. And then he's like, in our future, I see you fat with our child in your belly. And then they have sex again where she's on top and her wet braids are slapping her back. I don't care. I don't care about any of this. So she's thinking, I wonder how everything fared after the battle. Are the people still following Snorri? She asks him, are you gonna miss your brother? He's like, yeah, sure, but now he'll become Snorri's heir. He's one of them in a way I never will be, because I grew up in Nordland and he grew up in Scotland. All of a sudden, She's thinking, I think he's keeping things from me. Now? And she's like, you have to tell me the truth or I'm going to go back. And then she's thinking, how had everything devolved so quickly? And I'm like, bitch, I do not know. I'm asking myself the same question. So as she's walking away, she finds herself face to face with King Harold of Nordoland. How did you find us? Bjorn says. Your mother's cabin was the logical choice, Harold says. Wow. Bjorn, you've been positioning yourself as smarter than Freya, and you know what? Up to this point, I agreed with you, but you made the stupidest choice. If Harold knows where your mother's cabin is, why would you go back there? Why would you do that? You keep changing the plans we agreed to, Bjorn, plans we worked together on for most of your life. I was convinced by your belief that it was better to take Freya from Snorri, and even your desire to convince her to choose the path yourself. But judging from Freya's shock, it seems she knows nothing of your plan. No shit. She turns to Bjorn and says, are you a Skalander or a Nordlander? And he says, Nordlander. And she is shocked by this. And I'm like, the page before, he said to you that his brother Leif was the better choice to lead the people because he's more of a Skalander and Bjorn is more of a Nordlander. And now you dare to ask him, are you a Skalander or a Nordlander? You know the answer. He just told you. She's like, oh, you're the traitor. Here's me saying that this was going to happen before it happened to my husband while I was reading it. Hey, you know this book that I've been reading? I'm calling it right now that the guy, the love interest, this whole time has been lying to her. And
would have never saw that coming.
Oh my God, so shocking. And he is about to, the enemies are arriving and he's about to say, all along, I was with the enemy because I have daddy issues. And he's gonna be like, come with me, Freya. The enemies are not the enemies. The real enemy is my father. Betray him with me.
And she's gonna be like, that's my husband.
And she'll be like, stepson.
Stepson, how could you?
Time and time again, you watched me accuse Ylva knowing full well she was innocent. It was you. It wasn't Ylva speaking to Harold that night in Fjaltinder. It was you. And I'm like, it was a woman. What do you mean? Okay, I didn't speak to that night. I spoke to, and then it cuts off. I needed to get you away so that you'd have time to understand. And she's like, oh my God, Bjorn, you're allied with Bodil's murderer, Bodil, who I'm apparently supposed to care about. And so Bjorn turns to Harold and says, Father, I need to speak to Freya alone. And she says, that's not your father, Snorri is.
Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
And Bjorn yells at her and says, that piece of shit is not my father. All of this could have been done chapters and chapters ago. At least 10, if not more. And she's like, so confused. He says, I hate him. You hate Snorri? Bitch, you hate Snorri. Everybody hates Snorri. I hate Snorri, but I hate you too. Harold kept you a prisoner, a thrall to his whim, until Snorri rescued you. What madness is this that you name him father? He murdered your mother. He told you that neither of those men murdered his mother. He told you that. What you know is mostly Snorri's lies. I had to be certain I could trust you before revealing the truth. You could have offered her a way out of this way before. You could have offered her to ally with Harold and she probably would have taken it. Harold has more men. He has other allies. He could have saved her brother and her mom. He could have prevented his own people from going after her mom and killing her. Like all of this, you are so bad at planning. But you swore an oath to your mother that you'd deliver vengeance. I have fulfilled my oaths, Bjorn shouted. I swore to destroy him, swore to bring him low, swore to rip the crown from his grasp by taking the shield maiden, all of which is done. And Harold's like, if you'd only told me you cared for Freya, I'd have let you keep her. If you'd given Freya the truth, she might have chosen to serve Nordland. Yes, that's what makes this so annoying, is that none of this was necessary. And it's just a stupid idea. It's a stupid plot because now we get to have them, him moping because she hates him for at least 50% of the next book, right? Boo! So she says, once again, curse you all to Helheim, may hell take all of you into her keeping. And then the ground surely did tremble. Jesus, is this a Bible verse? Great blackened roots exploded from the earth, wrapping around his legs. And then they realized that she is a child of two bloods, not God and mortal, but of two gods. She's Hell's daughter, the first of her kind. And so a bunch of people just ended up dead and taken to hell instead of Valhalla. And he's like, that's because of your power. That's why you're so special, Freya. That is why even the gods themselves, deign to talk to you. Steinen shows up because apparently the bard has been working for Harold this entire time. And she blows smoke into Freya's face and Freya passes out. When she wakes up, she's on a Drakkar, a ship. She yells at Harold and she's like, I'm not stupid. I'm not like Björn. You won't twist my mind until I call you father. And I'm like, you're pretty stupid. We'll see. So she runs off this ship, jumps into the water. She gets caught by Björn. He's like, is getting away from me really worth crawling back to Snorri so he can use you to achieve his ends? And she says, yes. What? Oh my God. She's like, he murdered your mother. He said, Harold did not murder my mother. It was Snorri who tried to kill my mother, who tried to kill both of us because Ylva convinced him it was necessary so that Leif might inherit. Freya, my mother, is alive. I'm so shocked. I'm so shocked by this. Oh my God, I never saw this coming. Let me take you to my mother, Freya. I need you to understand. I'll never understand, she says. Well, you'll never understand much of anything because you have no brain. So she's there. She's stuck on the ship again. He caught her. And slowly Skalland disappears behind her and Nordland ahead. And that is where the book finally ends. This was such a waste of time. I got more and more mad as I read this. I just cannot believe how much of a waste of time this was. I mean, why? Why did we do things this way? Not only was it so heavy-handed, it also was so fucking boring. There's not a single person that I like really liked in this book. There were a couple things that I liked, but liking Bodil's power is not the same as liking Bodil. I didn't have enough time with Bodil. I don't give a shit that she's dead. Liking Steinen's power is a moot point because Steinen doesn't make sense. All of a sudden she's just like, I'm mad at Freya. Freya, a monster. What the fuck? We didn't take time to do anything in this. We were just horny and stupid. And I guess maybe if I had read this at a different time, I might have given it a 2.5, but I just feel like this is like a well-established author. This is a book that had a lot of hype around it. This won a Goodreads Choice nominee. I just feel like I, as a reader, deserved so much better from this. I was really shocked that the twist was not like a red herring where it's like, oh, see, yes, it is going to be Björn betraying her. Just kidding. It's this not satisfactory answer either, but at least we didn't do the one that was obvious. We just did the one that was obvious. I hate both those options, but my God, I hate that one more. So that was A Fate Inked in Blood. Now, I know this is an unpopular opinion. A lot of people put this on their best of the year list. That's fine. If you liked it, I'm genuinely happy for you. I'm okay with that. We can have different opinions on books. There really is no skin off my back. And I'm not going to tell you that you're like stupid for liking this. I think whatever you like. It's fine. I don't care. But to me, this was incredibly disappointing. I really expected way more out of this. I really did. And it has like quite a good cover. I can imagine like, you know, wanting to pick this up at a bookstore. And then if I had picked this up and I had a physical, I mean, I did buy it. I bought the audio. Fuck! Can't believe I used a Libro credit on this. God damn it. But if I had like cover bought this at a store and then cracked this shit open and it did that to me and it was just on my shelf, I'd be like, don't look at that. Don't look. No. I just really hate that. I hate being disappointed more than like if I go into something knowing it's going to be bad. It's like, wow, that went exactly as I thought it would. I get more annoyed when I expect more out of something and it lets me down. Like I also had this problem with, again, I also just finished The Fox and the Falcon, and the first book in that series, I had a moment there where I teared up and I felt very seen by that book, despite the fact that the rest of it was written pretty poorly. There's really no plot to those books at all, books 1 or 2. But I did have a moment there where it really hit me on an emotional level and I felt seen in a way that other books that talk about religious trauma and mommy issues, like those two things like together. I don't think another book has quite done that for me, but the rest of the book was so bad. So I gave it like a 2.25, but man, I am so disappointed that the follow-up, I have to film a review for that next. The follow-up book, I expected to have another one of those moments, or at least like improve upon the last book, and it went so south, and I'm really disappointed by that, and that's what's frustrating. I would rather be like, well, I knew this was going to be bad and I read it anyway, than go in thinking, like having expectations and being let down. Like if I think I'm going to at least give it a 2.5 and then it ends up a 1, that really pisses me off. I trusted you to at least be mediocre. Anyway, that's it. Leave an axe emoji below on behalf of, Björn, I guess, if you made it to the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons are Alexander, Andy, Ashley H, Astra, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Chocos, Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jess, Joel White, John E, K, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Katie M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, another Lex, Lily, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Minby, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlett, Spoopy, Steph Bowen, 3 raccoons in a trench coat, I love that name, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxists, and those are Alejandra, Alicia Needs a Nap, Alistair, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blythe, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Claire Online, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Desiree Michelle, Dorothea, Is Not Like Other Girls, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Fiona, Gadarn, Gilf Enthusiast, Halia Artisan, Hannah C, Harpy Curo, Helen P, Harising, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jello Salad, Jen Michelle, Gender Queer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kai, Catherine, Katie, Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, Mima Who, Myth Lesbian, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Paige P, Pandemonium, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sakoria, Sadie, Saintbringer, Sakyalume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie L, Stardust, T Delegati, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.